Crash Bandicoot was the very first game I ever played, so I thought it would be very fitting to spotlight this game for the first episode. So I got my very first PlayStation in 1997. This and Tomb Raider as my first two games, with the latter being one of the best games I've ever played to this day, which I'll definitely be covering one day, that's for sure. Anyway, this was quite the first game to play, as this game to this day is pretty difficult, especially with a few levels later on in the game. Seeing as this was my very first game and I was just a little laddie, I was not very good at this game. I could never finish this game at any percentage because there were some levels which I just couldn't finish at all. I just kept falling, which is laughable today because I've gotten pretty decent at most of these levels now. Just not at 100% because I am not that sadistic. At least not with this game anyway. Today, I do consider myself to be decent with this game because by the third island, I did max out at 99 lives, and I did die quite a few times to get to that point of the game. Because this game is generous with its life boxes, and I'm not complaining, it just made me feel comfortable when I was dying on harder levels of the game. Because do not get me wrong, this game is difficult at times, seriously, especially if you're going for the boxes in the game, especially when you have to backtrack. The one thing I've always liked about this game is that organic feel to the entire game, where you can see the third island on the first and second islands in the distance on some of the levels, which is a very nice touch. It does give that feeling that you are on this one big adventure. You know exactly where to go and you can see it in the background sometimes. You don't see that all too often in games these days, so it's really cool to see that. I do like it when you get to the third island where it's an industrial island more than a jungle/temple settings island, meaning that you really are on the doorstep of Cortex's lair. So it's a nice change, so there is quite a variety in this game. Speaking of the third island, let's talk about that infamous level, Slippery Climb. I never look forward to this level, at all, and it's always at the back of my mind throughout the rest of the game prior to this level where I just think, oh boy, I'm a level closer to Slippery Bloody Climb. Everything about this level is brutal, and I'm shocked they put a checkpoint in there seeing how sadistic the rest of the bloody level is. I just love the fact that the developers placed 4 lives at the end of the level as a big "we're sorry" to everybody that lost their sanity in this level due to the difficulty spike. However, there has always been another level I've never looked forward to playing either, and that's the lab. I just think it's an annoying level. I don't like the switch boxes activating the floor and doors where they just deactivate seconds later. The henchmen with the electrical current literally going through their body and the placement of these electricity stands aren't very fun to get through. Now, to the game's credit, it is the last full level in the game before the Great Hall and Cortex himself, of course. So it makes sense on why this one was challenging. It's still a level I'm not a fan of personally, but, you know, I'll give it some leeway. On the flip side to that, though, there are some genuinely good levels in the game, such as Hog Wild being the standout one because of the change of gameplay and, of course, the music. When I was young, this always made me feel joyful, really, because it's a very silly song, but I don't know, it's just very upbeat, and even to this day, I just genuinely love this wacky sounding song. Although I do think this level has one of the darkest things I've seen. It's quite savage as well, and that's when the hog you're riding jumps over its impaled brothers and sisters. I mean, that's just messed up. What makes it even more messed up is just Crash giving you that look at the beginning of the level. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that look. It just looks very, suggestive. So I defeat Cortex and I'm back at the main menu, so there's only one more thing to cover really, and that's the passwords. So I entered the super password and boom. The only gripe about this password was that you didn't have maxed out lives, you started at the default 4 lives. But that's not a problem, because in the level Castle Machinery, at the very beginning of the level, if you've got the green gem, you go up a level and there's 27 lives there for you. It's pretty cool actually. It really is one of the highlights of the game because it just feels good getting so many lives in one go. Another highlight of the game was in the level Native Fortress where you ride these red gems and you're that high up that the clouds themselves are platforms where you can get a few nice little goodies in there. It's really cool. There are 2 additional levels to unlock as well via those Cortex emblems, and the levels themselves are okay. They aren't anything special, but they are a little trickier to their counterparts of the first level within that environment. I finally went to the Great Hall. I jumped over the white gems and set off into the moonlight on one of those bloody vultures with Torna, and cue the confusing aftermath of the bosses you fought in the game and the credits. Honestly, I like this game. Despite the backwards save system, the box is respawning, so you have to backtrack if you die, if you want that gem, slippery climb, and the 100% ending being a little meh. I still had a pretty good time with this game, despite the drawbacks. It's a short game. It took me about 2 hours to finish the game at any percentage. It's a product of its time, and it does show, but it's still a fun time. I respect this game for introducing me to the world of video games because, boy, I've played a lot of them ever since, and I do like to come back to this game here and there. Even though I do think the Insane Trilogy is the slightly better experience, purely because the game is less sadistic with its game design, even with Stormy Ascent in there. This game will always have a special place in my heart, purely for being the very first game I ever played, as it did introduce me to something I still do to this day, which is gaming, and the experiences of it throughout my life really, the good and bad. So thank you Naughty Dog for creating this game. It's meant a lot to me. And on that note, we have come to the end of this video. So thank you so much for watching, and take care.